All right, well, I guess it's 4 o'clock, so we'll call the Select Board meeting, Jackson, December 3rd, 2019 to order. Our regularly scheduled meeting at 4 p.m. here in the town office in Jackson. First up is approval of the minutes from November 26.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing, Joyce? Entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
I will second that motion.
All right, any discussion, any revisions or anything?
I already sent mine in with just a few typos.
2 typos.
No, they looked accurate to me.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, sir.
Let's put it on.
Much better, thanks. He wanted to get on his tractor today. Good sign.
That's a good sign. Not what I would want to do.
Thanks,
but
Chris. I know, I think he did
Tell him I
just to
said hi.
irritate me. I will, John, thanks.
All right, item number 3 are the action items.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome, I should say.
Ah, there we go.
Let's see, Barb, you got the fire station update?
Yes, we had a productive first meeting today, and we will have more of a request and a presentation to the select board for the next meeting. So,
At our next select meeting, you mean?
yes, at our next select meeting, yes.
So that will be on the 17th.
The 17th, correct.
Okay. You have anything, Richard?
No, I went to the fire meeting though, and I agree it was very productive. I think it's getting concise, and it was pretty freewheeling for a while, but
Yeah.
it's really getting channeled into, what we can do for this year.
Right.
Do we have any department head updates? Anything from anybody? No. Items of necessary importance. Upcoming meetings, Tuesday, December 17th at 4 p.m. January meetings are the 14th and 21st. And on the 21st will be the first budget hearing following our selectmen's meeting. So remind people to get their budget stuff in. And Tuesday, February 4th, and following that will be the second budget meeting. So.
And the reason those are not following the second and the fourth Tuesdays is because February 4th is the last day to submit petitioned articles. And then once those are in, then we get stuff to the printer sooner. So.
Perfect.
Alrighty, February 25th, March 10th will be the town elections, and March 12th will be the town meeting. I can't believe that's hit the schedule
No.
already. Wow.
I appreciate having them though, now.
Yeah, that's good.
Plan ahead.
Item 4, building inspector. Kevin is not here today. So that's him now. Nope, hey Scott, how are you? We have 4 building permits that are up here. Let's see. 164 Eagle Mountain Road, electrical work in a house and garage on R12 lot 27, I believe. And then on R31 lot 33, 587 Town Hall Roads, addition, screen porch.
Now the next one, if you're reading off the agenda,
I am.
okay, so if you look in your packet with building permits, that one actually is not been approved.
Oh, really? Here it is.
Okay, there's a problem with the ZBA. They haven't responded about this permit request. And it's a problem because they're supposed to respond within 5 days of making a decision, and it's been, I guess, a month or more.
2 months.
It's been 2 months.
Almost 2 months, yeah.
Or whatever, it's not in a timely manner, and the RSAs are specific that it has to be done within 5 days. So we have to get a response from the ZBA somehow or I don't know what the alternative is. I think it's putting the town in a bad position.
Do we hear from them at all?
I can talk to my dad,
That'd be appreciative.
and then I can make him, and then he can probably get in touch with what's his name, Steve Policeman.
That would be great.
So I
That'd
can
be awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
This permit's held up because of that.
I mean, he was always very timely in his response from a request, so it would be nice to get back to that.
Definitely. All right. Thank you, Hank, for doing that. That was R18 Lot 44, by the way. And the last one was V9 Lot 17, 29 Stem Turn Road, install 44 solar panels on the roof. And a Tesla wall battery, I guess it is. So, very good. Anybody else have anything on the?
Nope.
Alright. Moving on to new business.
Before we do 5A,
Yes.
Scott might want to just, he's here today because the planning board is asking, and Dick can speak to this as well, but the planning board is asking permission to go to Peter Malia to discuss housing or zoning changes.
Yeah, zoning changes in relation to short-term rentals. We probably envision wanting to talk to Peter either after this Thursday's work session or possibly after next Thursday. Possibly after this Thursday's work session, but certainly likely, if not, then after next Thursday's regular planning board meeting is when we would have enough of a draft to have Peter look at it before we go to a public hearing. So that we're not presenting something that is not going to fly in the first place.
Can you add to that?
I think that it'd be important to have that go to Peter for his review, because one, he's the one who would have to defend it for us, and I would like to put it into whatever legalese he feels is appropriate. We can put down our thoughts on what we would like, and he would shape it into, a legal document. So I think it's important that it get to him.
And the one other part to this is that Cordell Johnston, who's a counsel at the New Hampshire Municipal Association, has looked at what we've done so far and has made some suggestions that would be somewhat foundational in terms of the changes that he's recommending, with the result being that we achieved essentially the same thing, but that either we need to somewhat recraft it to be a limited use type ordinance, if I understand correctly, or recraft it to be a special exception that would go before the ZBA. But either way, there's some things that do probably need to be changed in any case. So that was kind of before we get too far down the road with something that ultimately needs to be edited.
Are we using any kind of a template from any other local towns or other towns that have put something into place and working off of that, or are you guys rewriting from scratch?
Nope, we're using Laconia's
Got
quite
it.
heavily, and we also looked at Freeport, Maine. It's more, Mr. Johnson's recommendations are more procedural in nature as opposed to what we're trying to do in terms of intent.
Nice.
So I'd make a motion that we allow the planning board to go to Peter Malia with their proposal when it is appropriate.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anything else on 5A? Do you guys have anything on 5A?
We do have things on 5A.
Yes.
We have a whole list on.
That's why I'm looking at your general direction.
Some time ago,
Just right out.
Bob Thompson had tasked Julie and I with going over the suite of ordinances that we have to see if there were any that were redundant, unusable, unworkable, improper, so on and so forth. So we did that and made some edits and suggestions on current ordinances. But what we also noticed was a void in ordinances in areas that we as the police, and I think to some degree the town, get complaints in those areas. And we have no mechanism for enforcement other than if people's conduct and behavior violates a state law, if a state law exists. The benefit of ordinances is that you can take a lower level enforcement approach. You can regulate conduct and property in the town that isn't covered by statutory authority, and improve the quality of life. That's the reason that you have ordinances. So the specific areas that we wanted to ask you if you were interested in exploring, because ultimately the authority for an ordinance comes from the legislative body. They have to vote at town meeting. And if the selectmen are not interested in, drafting these ordinances and exploring them, then this is as far as the project goes. So we've also checked with Peter Malia on the process for approval, and they are voice votes at town meeting. They're not ballot votes. So the areas that we wanted to explore were the use of fireworks other than licensed and approved commercial displays. And again, these are areas where we have life safety concerns or also complaints. Noise ordinance to include amplified music or sound. We don't currently, in these areas, we have no ordinances currently. There is an ordinance that says noise ordinance shall be enforced, but there really is no ordinance. So that was an error that we found. The only thing we have to go on is disorderly conduct, which is a state statute. Smoking or vaping on public property. We don't have any ordinances associated with smoking or vaping on public property. There are laws about doing it in a public building, but not on public property, like when we have our 4th of July gatherings and so on and so forth. Skateboarding. And the area that we get complaints on is the conduct of skateboards that, although they have a full rights and privilege to use the rights of way, just like any other conveyance, they don't really, there's no regulations they have to comply with. So the concept was to have a town ordinance where skateboards have to comply with the same rules and regulations as bicycles. So if they're going to be conveyances on the road, they have to be used in the same manner, and not, obviously it's not a bicycle, but similar regulations. We also don't have an ordinance on camping on town property. And to some degree, we may not even be able to enforce trespass because there's no authority to tell people not to do it. And we did have a couple of instances, which seems to be occurring more and more often, of people just itinerantly camping on town property. So those are the 5 ordinance categories in review: fireworks, noise ordinance to include amplified music or sound, smoking or vaping on public property, skateboarding as it relates to rules of the road and safety, camping on town property. Those are the 5 ordinances. The other thing we wanted to discuss and the selectmen to contemplate was, we currently have a suite of rules associated with the use of Prospect Farms. But those rules are not written as an ordinance. So the enforcement of the rules really defaults to, on some level, just criminal trespass, which is kind of a strong stance to take if someone is in Prospect Farms doing something they're not supposed to be doing. So it's kind of trespass, it's kind of not. In particular, last winter, there was a conflict associated with the snowmobiling rules in Prospect Farms. Currently, the rules say residents only can snowmobile in Prospect Farms. The question was, does that mean residents and their guests? Does that mean they can give guests permission? So those things not only rise to the level of conflict because we get calls, but there's also no enforcement mechanism other than, again, defaulting to trespass, maybe. I mean, if you're in an area doing something you're not supposed to be doing, it might be trespass, or it could just be you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing, there's no enforcement action. So we kind of wanted to see the rule, not modify the rules, but ask the selectmen to think about, are you comfortable with the rules in Prospect Farm, and could you adopt the rules as an ordinance so we can take enforcement action should we need to? You know, our goal is really never to take enforcement action. It's to prevent and then educate and then, if we have to, enforce. But those areas, those 6 areas, we wanted to know if you want to look at it more critically, and if you wanted draft language to suggest ordinances that the town would adopt.
Thoughts on that?
And the goal mostly, like you said, is really public safety, and you're addressing things that you have already had issues with or complaints that sort of either have a loophole or no way to enforce or make a judgment on?
Yes.
Or you'd have to use judgment first.
As I go down the list, you can probably imagine, or you may, as selectmen, you hear complaints, probably as much as I do, about problems, and we do respond to them, but then we have very limited things that we can do, and oftentimes, just a kind word and a warning about conduct. Like, for instance, fireworks. We currently don't have an ordinance on the personal use of fireworks. If people are using them and it's disturbing the community, which it often does, then we respond. The noise ordinance, like I said, that's kind of like a vaguitude because there is no real noise ordinance. Sometimes we lean a little bit on reckless conduct because the discharge of fireworks could be a fire hazard to buildings and property around. But that's a very strong stance to take on something that communities generally handle with an ordinance. I know, like, just as an aside, I think it's the town of Madison, they have a fireworks ordinance that there's 2 specific days that you can set off fireworks without, really without regulation. I think it's 4th of July and New Year's Eve. And the rest of the time it's prohibited. So it doesn't, all ordinances don't have to be an all or nothing, but it gives us an ability to, with legitimacy, go to a call and say, hey, look, we have a fireworks ordinance. You're not allowed to discharge fireworks either totally or on certain days under certain conditions. And here's your warning, don't do it again. If we come back, we're gonna have to cite you. Other than the alternative is an arrest for reckless conduct, that's a little strong, I think, for fireworks.
Do we have a noise ordinance already for public places at all?
No.
So we don't.
No, it's odd, Barbara, because the ordinance book says the noise ordinance will be enforced at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
But there's no noise ordinance, so I don't know what was going to be enforced at 10 p.m.
And then we have the wedding thing that we've asked to be kind to your neighbors, but it's not an ordinance.
Yeah, and the noise ordinance often, when a community doesn't have an ordinance, the police often have to default to disorderly conduct, which there's, I think, 14 different categories of behavior and disorderly conduct. But again, you're talking about an arrestable offense versus a citation you can issue for the community that can quell the disturbance. An enforcement action. You can always default to those arrestable offenses, and you can arrest for ordinances if you think it's going to continue. But it's a pretty heavy hand. And I think, the disorderly conduct statute doesn't really consider fireworks specifically, so that's why town ordinances help communities preserve what they want to preserve, because you can it's a scalpel instead of a hammer.
Do you have the time to come up with the words that we would find useful in enforcing the ordinances?
But as long as you don't use that egg timer, I think we'll have to.
You already know.
Yes, I mean, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Many communities have quality ordinances already on the books that are enforceable, survive constitutional challenge, and are workable. You know, the town, and, you know, the town has to decide if they want those things, and if they are workable. You know, if they're horrible sounding and they're really strict and sound, you know, for lack of better words, mean-spirited, then the town will say, no, that's ridiculous. But I think we can draft those ordinances in short order, so that during the budgetary process and the vetting process for that, we have an opportunity. We do need to have public hearings, which I think are incorporated in the selectmen's meetings.
Mm-hmm.
We do have to have public hearings and discussion on the ordinances to be valid and provide due process. But yeah, yes, I think I can, Dick.
I would make
Or
a
we can, I
motion
should say.
that we have the chief bring us the wording for the ordinances and how to enforce them.
Yeah, and I mean, if you don't like them, then it doesn't go any further, and then if the town doesn't like them, it doesn't go any further, and then if the town likes them, then it's up to us to manage it.
I'll second.
You know, does it need to be made a motion? I mean,
Well, I think that gives him the mandate to go ahead and pursue it.
any other discussion? Scott?
I guess I'd just like to add, and all of that sounds, you know, fine to me, but I think I'd urge that you consider that at times voluntary neighborly conduct can be more powerful than an ordinance. And in terms of noise ordinance, you know, the hotels apparently can sort of do whatever they want, but they do, and I can hear, you have the benefit or lack of benefit of being able to hear pretty much everybody. Whitney's, Wentworth, Eagle. And while, you know, I don't enjoy being out at night listening to that, it does benefit the town, and they do always shut off by 10 o'clock. And so my concern is, you know, if you craft an ordinance and say by this time, this decibel level, sometimes that invites someone to push their activity to the limit of what they're allowed to do. And so just a balance of making sure that people, you know, that we have a way of making sure people act in the right manner, but also allowing them to do that somewhat on their own, because I think sometimes people are more likely to do the right thing.
Well, as Chief said, we already have wording for noise. We asked, but if it's unenforceable, or there is no mandate to enforce it, or words, we're in trouble. Where do we go with, like he says, do you go to conduct or more stringent?
Right, and I understand we don't have something to use if there's a problem, but on the other hand, you know, the hotels at least seem to be very, you know, they're voluntarily, you know, adhering to that, the way we'd like them to.
They sign on for it when they...
Well, I think that there are two separate things. There's the noise ordinance, and then as far as the hotels with the weddings, that's tied to the liquor license. The town had asked, you know, we've gotten complaints about noise, we will allow you to have a liquor license for this wedding, however, this is what we would like in return. So it's
Right,
it's
once you
a
go
separate...
outside the building with a tent or whatever.
I would agree, in great part, Scott, with what you said is like, you know, I think ordinances that are like decibel level based, if they have a hard line time, you may have people conduct themselves differently because now they're filling an area where before they might have thought, oh, I should only, you know, be doing this till 9. But I can tell you just structurally, generally structurally, I think decibel level ordinances, that's a rabbit hole no one should go down, because enforcement and measurement and proof is a very, very difficult.
And that was just
endeavor.
And then, well,
No, but that's,
no, it's more the principle.
There is a decibel,
Yeah,
there is a
great.
decibel thing in that agreement with
In the liquor license
Yes,
permits?
yes. Well, yeah.
It's just more the principle that sometimes too much ordinance results in worse behavior than less ordinance.
Sarah?
Yes, will this noise ordinance be applicable to the new problems that some towns are having with Airbnbs or short-term rentals? If,
Well, it's applicable to any conduct within the town under the specific,
Details.
prohibitions or details of the ordinance, so it wouldn't matter if it was a rental home. But I will say, from a professional perspective, I've always felt it's a much smarter endeavor to try to regulate and control behavior than real estate. People don't complain that someone's home is being rented, they complain because of the conduct of the renters. So you don't really have to concern yourself, enforcement-wise, with what the nature of the lease agreement is. You need to concern yourself with, is the behavior lawful or unlawful? Does it disturb the peace or does it not, generally, so. So in essence, any ordinance is enforceable on any thing or structure or person. Yeah.
Anybody else have anything? I'm not against, these ordinances at all. I just, I think they obviously will have to be specified at some point, time, state, things like that. But very good. Any other discussion on that?
Nope.
Joyce?
Just a clarification. So an ordinance coming before the town is just a voice vote, not a ballot?
A warrant article would be a ballot, I believe.
No.
It would be a warrant article.
It's a warrant article. What the chief
warrant
brings,
article would be
we review it. Looks good, it goes on the town warrant, it's a voice.
So the things that are ballot votes would be zoning ordinance changes, building, what is it, building code, things like that are ballot vote.
And so this would come, so now I'm still confused. So it would be put forth as a warrant article, each one, or as a group? I don't care.
I would think you would do
Each one.
Individually. Yeah, because, somebody might object to one and not the other 5, or, okay.
Yeah, and again, we didn't want to pursue the project, because this is the heavy lifting part. We didn't want to pursue the project unless the selectmen were interested in going forward, because it was Bob's, kind of Bob's project when he was selectman, and now he's not here. So, like I said, we got this far, and we're like, we should probably check with you to see if you're interested in going forward. And like I said, now the heavy lifting starts. We didn't just want to throw it in your lap and say, here you go.
Thanks.
Very good. Sarah, do you have something to add?
we have public comment?
In a second, but.
Okay.
No, just on this issue.
No,
No.
fine.
All right. All set with that? Any old business?
Let's take the vote.
Oh,
I proposed a,
sorry. Okay. All those in favor of approving Chris to go forward with wording of the ordinances? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for reminding me. Old business? Any old business we have floating around? No? Public comments.
Yes, I was glad to hear the announcement of the dates of the budget hearing. And as you go forward with that, I'd just like to mention, and this is all, anybody can go and get anybody's tax bill online or come here to the office because it's public information. But I would just like to bring up that since 2011, my taxes have increased close to 7% a year if you average it out to today's date in 2019. And that's to me, quite a large increase. And even though I listen to people and try to save money, IRAs and so on and so forth, to make myself be an independent person and not have to, to keep hold of my home and so on and so forth. If we continue to increase in this level, I think you're putting a very heavy burden on the taxpayers. And structurally, we put in the new town garage, but other than that, we've built no new roads.
Anybody else with public comments? All right. Go ahead, Joyce.
I guess just listening to Sarah, I think I could go along with what she said. If I could add my opinion to what she said.
7%? Add your 7%?
Yeah. I don't know what our increase is. I just know it increases every year. I haven't looked at the, I haven't calculated the percentage.
All right. We don't have any non-publics today, right?
Nope.
All right. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd make that motion.
I will second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Wow, half hour today. Well ready.